Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Mordy and Glory video. Today I am going to be introducing you to the new must-have character for your Imperial Guard army, the Death Corps Marshal. If you thought Cadians were the true leaders of the Imperial Guard, think again. Once I've taken you through this guy, you'll never put a Cadian Castellan in your list ever again. And with that bold and probably inflammatory commentary made, I imagine there's going to be quite a lot of angry Cadian people down in the comment section right now. Let's dive right into today's episode. So some of you might be asking, Mordy and Glory, what the hell is a Death Corps Marshal? So the first thing I'll do is give you an overview of this cheeky chappy. The first thing to mention is he is a Forge World unit. That means you will not find it inside your codex. Don't worry if you're flicking through the pages going, I can't find this guy. Where is he? My codex must be defective. It's not defective. Don't worry. Like I said, you'll find this guy in the Forge World Compendium. If you don't have a copy of the Forge World Compendium, you can easily find him in Battlescribe, the Warhammer 40k GW app, and many other online resources as well. So now that we know where to find this guy, let's go through his stats. He has a movement of 6, weapon skill 3, plus ballistic skill 3, plus strength 3, toughness 3, 4 wounds, 3 attacks, leadership 9, and a 4+ save. That is a very standard issue profile for most Guard characters. Now, what you have to remember is that this guy is an 8th edition character that has been updated for the 9th edition codex. So you'll notice that his profile is a little bit different to other senior officers in your army. You'll notice he has 1 less wound. You'll notice he has 1 less attack. Cadian Castellans do have a couple of advantages over this guy. They are a little bit tougher with that extra wound, and it can make a difference, especially if you're getting hit by multi-damage weapons like damage 2 heavy bolters. And of course, they also have that extra attack, which means if they ever do find themselves in combat, they might have a very, very slim chance of fighting their way out of it. But let's be honest, probably not. The Death Corps Marshal stat line is actually more akin to that of a platoon commander than it is to a normal senior officer. But he does have some advantages as well. Firstly, he has a 4+ save, which means that against small arms fire, he's actually more durable than the Cadian Castellan, who only has a 5+ save. Also, like every other Guard character out there, he comes with a plethora of free war gear options. Now, interestingly, as standard, he comes with a las pistol and power sword. Most Guard characters come with las pistol and chainsaw for free, but this guy comes with a power sword. You can swap the power sword for a chain sword. That does give you 1 extra attack, but of course you lose all of the great stats from the power sword. The only reason you might want to do that is if you were going to do some absolute mad combat martial thing, or you're going for a fluff upgrade and you wanted to give him the relic chainsaw, the legacy of Caladius. But apart from that, you're probably going to want to stick with that power sword. He also can swap his las pistol out for a bolt pistol for free, and in fact the only paid upgrade for this guy is the plasma pistol, which will cost you 5 points. That's pretty much standard war gear options for most Guard officers. Do note, though, he does not have the option to take a power fist, but considering that the power fist is a complete trap war gear option that you pretty much never want to pay for on any of your Guard characters, it's not actually a bad thing. Just means you've got less chances of fucking up and making a mistake with that war gear options. Now, everything that I've talked about so far has been standard issue on the Death Corps Marshal's profile since it was first introduced way back at the beginning of 8th edition. What's interesting is the model has been recently FAQ'd and updated to now be much more in line with the current 9th edition book. It's had the big overhaul. It's been pimped. Pimp My Death Corps Marshal has taken place. And as a result, the abilities of this chap are brilliant. You basically get the exact same abilities as a Cadian Castellan. You get the regimental tactics, you get voice of command, you get the 5+ invulnerable save from the refractor field, and most importantly, you get that sweet, sweet senior officer aura, which means that while a friendly Astra Militarum core unit is within 6 inches of this model, each time model in that unit makes attack, you get to reroll a hit roll of 1. Really, really strong ability, fantastic way of adding rerolls into your army, and the best bit is this guy can also do orders, and just like a Cadian Castellan, he can also do 2 orders because he is a senior officer and he comes with all of the perks of that rank. Now, you might be saying at this point, Mordian Glory, what is so good about this guy? I mean, you've basically said that he is exactly the same as Acadian Castellan, and he has a slightly different profile. Overall, probably about as durable, one less attack. He can't take my favorite Pathist. Get out of here, Pathist fan. You don't want you here. What's so special about this guy? Simply put, guys, his points cost. The Death Corps Marshal does everything that Acadian Castellan does, except he does it for 15 points less. That's right. This guy comes in at 35 points. And this is what fundamentally makes him a better choice than the Acadian Castellan. Fundamentally makes him an auto take unit, because you already need to be taking Acadian Castellans and other sources of reroll ones in your army. You need senior officers. You cannot run an effective guard list without one senior officer in there. I normally run two. I spend the CP for heroic support that allows me to take an extra commandant, and I take two senior officers in my list. And I take two Death Corps Marshals. Now, you might say to me, Mordian Glory, really? You're doing a whole video about a cat that's only 15 points cheaper? I'm just not that bothered. I think I'll stick with my Acadian Castellan. Well, hang on there, big spender. Oh, look at Mr. Moneybags over here, willing to spend 50 points per senior officer. Ooh, fancy lad. Let me come around your house for Sunday dinner. But aside from my being facetious, saving 15 points is actually pretty important. And when you think about it, if you're taking two of these things like I do, I'm actually saving 30 points. And 30 points is important. You would be surprised how much you get for 30 points in a guard army. Straight up, you're looking at getting an officer of the fleet and change. Oh, I really wish I had an officer of the fleet in that last game. If only I'd been able to deny my opponent bringing his reserves when he wanted to. Well, guess what? Maybe if you'd taken a Death Corps Marshal, you could have easily afforded it. 30 points is enough for you to start putting tank aces on your Leman Russes. Oh, I really wish that my Gatekeeper tank commander Leman Russ had meticulous calibrated. There was that one turn when I just rolled a whole load of threes, and if only I had been hitting on threes, but that damn dense terrain got in my way, I would have been able to hit the enemy and I would have won the game. That one clutch moment lost me the game. Or maybe you could have afforded meticulous calibrator if you had saved your points on your Acadian Castellans and gone for Death Corps Marshals instead. It's not quite enough, but by saving 30 points in a list, you're most of the way there. You're 75% of the way there to getting yourself an extra Scout Sentinel in your army. Or perhaps it saves you enough points to upgrade that Astropath into a Primara Psyker and you can really start handing out the mortal wounds. Maybe 30 points is enough for you to get elite sharpshooters via veteran commandeer on that Vanquisher cannon, so actually your favorite big anti-tank gun can hit the enemy every single time. It only seems like a small amount of points until you realize how much bang for buck you can really get. I mean, it's the equivalent of being able to put 3 sets of heavy bolt sponsons on your Leman Russes. What would you rather have? An extra wound on a couple of your characters, or the ability to fire 18 heavy bolter shots a turn? And even if you don't have 2 Acadian Castellans in your list, maybe you're only going to be saving 15 points by taking this guy. Just by saving 15 points, you can still add a hell of a lot of bang to your list. I mean, 15 points is enough to get you the Vaunted Praetorian tank case. I am just doing that off the top of my head. If I'm slightly under there, then I apologize. But it's enough to get you an extra ability in your list. And being able to upgrade one of your tanks to be Vaunted Praetorian means you can spread your orders out. That's just great. I mean, why would you complain about that? On a fundamental level, you could buy 3 heavy stubbers for your army. Now, you might think, oh, what's 3 heavy stubbers going to do? 3 heavy stubbers in a Born Soldier's list is not insignificant. Think about it. You've got 3 heavy stubbers. If we assume that on average, each one of those heavy stubbers is going to get to fire 4 times throughout the course of a game. They're not going to fire every single turn. Maybe one of them will die and the other 2 can fire every single turn. Maybe you can't see the enemy with one of your stubbers for a turn. Maybe you get the first turn and your opponent's well hidden. Let's assume that each heavy stubber gets to fire 3 times. That means that 4 times. That means each heavy stubber is putting out 12 shots. That means by being able to afford 3 heavy stubbers, you are putting out 36 shots. With Born Soldiers, that is 6 free auto wounds that you're now getting into your list. And all of the other DACA that doesn't auto wound as well. All of that for simply taking the same character and running them as a Death Corps Marshal rather than Acadian Castellan. Now, some of you might be saying, but Mordian Glory, I don't want to have to go out and buy more officers for my army. I've just gone and bought a lot of Acadian Castellans. I don't want to have to start messing around with Forge World models and resin and all of the headaches that come with that kind of stuff. Well, don't worry. Let me be completely honest with you. I don't own any Death Corps Marshals, but I own a shitload of Guard characters, a shitload of Guard officers. And I just run them as whatever datasheet I need them to be. Think about it. At the end of the day, an officer is an officer. In my collection alone, I have got officer models from 2nd edition all the way up through to 9th edition with the new releases, okay? You're not telling me that I now can't run my Cadian Lieutenant from 3rd edition, one of my favorite models, you know, Lieutenant Steve with the Power Fist and Las Pistol. You're not telling me I can't run him in my army now because technically lieutenants don't exist anymore. No, they do. He's a Guard officer, all right? So as long as you have a Guard officer in your army, you can run him as a platoon commander. You can run him as a Cadian Extended. You can run him as a Death Corps Marshal. You can run him as bloody Creed if you want to, or Straka. It doesn't really matter. As long as the model accurately represents what that guy is equipped with, you can kind of run him as whatever officer or datasheet you want. And as evidence to back this claim up, I have played in dozens of tournaments. I've played in dozens of 9th edition tournaments alone, and I've never ever had a problem with running my officers as Death Corps Marshals or as Cadian Castellans or as platoon commanders. It doesn't matter. All that the TOs care about is as long as the model is accurately representing what that guy is armed with, they don't really care if it's a Krieger, Acadian, a Mordian, a Frostroian, or anything like that. They just need to make sure that things are easy for your opponent to understand. And likewise, your opponent is frankly not going to know the difference between a Death Corps Marshal and a Cadian Castellan. So if the TOs are okay with it, if my competitive players are okay with it, and if everyone I've ever played against is okay with it, then I'm pretty sure that it's all right for you to run your old lieutenants or your other officers as Death Corps Marshals in your games. I mean, hell, if having to have the exact right Games Workshop model was a requirement for you to be able to run a unit, most Orc players would be crying right now because the 90% of their collection would be unusable. I don't think I've ever come across an Orc army that isn't at least 50% customized. Now, there are just a couple of things that I want to make you aware of when it comes to running the Death Corps Marshal. Firstly, it's important to note that officially this guy comes on a 25mm base. Most Guard officers in the new kits either come on a 28.5mm base or a 32mm base. It's a very, very small difference. In the vast majority of your games, even tournament games, most people are not going to care. Games Workshop even said on their Warhammer community Facebook page they weren't realistically expecting Guard players with existing collections to go out there and rebase all their officer command squads. But it is something to be aware of, and I always say that it's better to err on the side of caution. If you are running an officer as a Cadian Castellan, and he's on a 25mm base, that's actually generally a disadvantage because you could have a 32mm base and your reroll one's aura and your order distance could be very slightly longer. But running a Death Corps Marshal who's meant to be on a 25mm base and you're running him on a 32mm base, some very strict people, some very strict TOs might argue you are modeling for advantage. So my advice to you would be, if you are going to run a Death Corps Marshal in your army, it would probably be best if you made sure that that particular officer was on a 25mm base. Another small thing to mention is that your Death Corps Marshal will technically have less relic and stratagem support. Typically, you won't be able to use the Cadian things on him. So you can't be messing around with the Lost Relic of Cadia on the Death Corps Marshal, and you can't use Cadia stands on him either. On paper, that might seem like a bit of an issue. In reality, you're never, ever going to use any of those relics or stratagems on him anyway. If you're going to use Cadia stands, you're going to use it on something like a Dreadnought. If your commander has found himself in that position, then there's a strong chance that things have kind of gone a bit sideways anyway. Likewise, the Relic of Lost Cadia is good, but as of the time of recording, you're never going to pick it over, let's say, the big bullshit Banner of Doom. So it's just something to be aware of. I personally don't worry about it so much because I tend to find I use those relic stratagems on other units anyway, like my command squads typically. There is one other thing you need to be aware of, which is this is a Forge World unit. And Forge World units come and go. And as of late, they've mostly been going. I would say that there's a strong possibility that at some point, Games Workshop is going to update this guy's points value to basically be in line with the Cadian Castellan. At that point, you might as well take the Cadian Castellan instead. All right. Right now, this has flown under the radar. Right now, GW hasn't done a Munitorum Field Manual update involving the new Guard Codex. I would say use this, abuse this as much as you can until the update comes out, especially if you're a tournament player. Squeeze every advantage you've got. And when the update does come out, don't be too sad. Just take off that gas mask, put in those purple contact lenses, and have all your officers become Cadian instead. But all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Are you Team Deathcore Marshal, or are you sticking with your Cadian Castellans? Do you think that extra base size, wound, and attack are worth the extra 15 points? Let me know down in that comment section. If you've enjoyed today's video, make sure you smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. And if you found today's video particularly entertaining or informative, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. One of the biggest perks of becoming a supporter is you gain access to the Mordian Glory Discord, an online community of over 1,000 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord, and we've got channels for discussing tactics, army lists, painting, hobbying, and we've even got a pretty spicy meme section as well. And I'd just like to wrap today's video up with saying some thank yous to the latest channel members and Patreon supporters. So a massive thank you to Ikuta Grimfate, Slothy, Faith Beyond 77, Rudy Garcia, Tweedlebum, Alexander, Fallon Seafer 37, Joseph Anderson, Zeroheim, Kaylee Ann Bristow, Cause Bad Guys, Jabba the Bearded, HRC Juniors, Magna Alba, Brute Empowered, Average White Shark 6, James Willett, Facelift 01, Graham Wellard, Alexander, Reese Jones, Travis Jones, Matthew Rumler, Matty No, M, Mel, Andrew Bean, Obama Barrack, thank you Mr. President, Jake the Snake 839, Floofy Bat, Andrew Chahil, Random Gazman, Giappy 390, Paulo, JT Gamble, Eric Potter, Josep, Super Toast 1134, Night Ghoul, Titus, Tiny Little Dragon, Caleb, Moxie Man, Benjamin, and Zidark Penguin. Thank you guys for becoming channel members. Thank you for doing your part. I'd also like to shout out the latest Patreon supporters as well. So a massive thank you to Blark, Now Gladder, Steel X Spider, Tiki the Hut, Zabras, Mark Allen, Mr. Weedrell, Rosebush, Lassie, and Rickon Stark. Thank you guys for your Patreon support. And last, but certainly not least, I would like to say a personal, heartfelt, special thank you to all of my top tier Patreon supporters. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a massive thank you to Alan Blunt III, Bonbon Vert, Mark Panconi, Ridemaster 134-1, Ross Miller, Swordfish Trombone, Zabras, Alex Dengal, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, Tom Sutton, and August Varney. Thank you guys. Your incredibly generous support makes a huge, huge difference, and it is a big part of the lifeblood of this channel. I hope you've all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.